Good morning. I need a good morning back. Come on. Thank you. Who was at the Urban Bourbon After Hours experience last night? Okay. That was, if you didn't go, you missed it, because we had our first ever Tech Home Builders Got Talent, and there was actually some talent, and there was some non-talent, but everybody was earnest in their presentations, and there was a lot of applause and laughter, so you missed it if you didn't make it. Welcome to another general session, early morning after 2 long days, general session. We appreciate you getting up and getting here. Here we are with our process continuum again, talking a little bit about strategy and merchandise planning, and the production side of things as regards installation. So we're going to dive into how to select and manage vendors, and meaning manufacturers and integrators and subs, in the context of this purposeful plan process that we've been not so subtly messaging on throughout the event. My partners in crime this morning, I wanted some separation from Jerry, but he insisted on sitting next to me. Jerry Calder with Snap One. Tell people a little bit about yourself and your company, or companies.
Companies, yeah. Snap One is a distributor, but we're also a manufacturer and designer of low voltage components, automation, et cetera. One of the companies that we own that you may be familiar with is Control4. We're kind of unique in the industry that we wear all 3 of those hats. And basically, we're here to support our partner Claire in the production volume side of things. So.
But talk about your personal history in the industry, because you're going to be talking about the installation side of things.
Why are you calling me out so early in the morning?
Because I'm trying to create a defensive barrier here. I'm going on the offense early, Jerry.
I've been in the industry for 30 years. I started out as a car audio installer, of all things, and progressed through the installation side of things.
I didn't think you were going to start that early in your career. Talk about the broader installation side.
I knew I should have stayed at home. On the install side of it, I've been fortunate enough to run crews all over the U.S. and up in Canada. At one point, I had a little over 3,000 integrators that were either direct reports or subcontractors. And I got into the builder side of things. We offered solutions starting off with Lennar, and we're able to grow that business into a very large regional business. And then I was asked and recruited by Circuit City to go start their builder program for them.
What's Circuit City?
Yeah, it's been a long time. And also their consumer counterpart to Geek Squad. So
yeah, that was cool.
Little bit of experience when it comes to integration.
Big installations that were synced with production builders.
But also really deep in the high-end custom as well.
Right.
So is that good enough for you?
That's good.
All right.
Nice start. I'm going to go out of alphabetical order, and I'll ask you, Paul, to introduce yourself. He's a new Arc of Achievement Award honoree as of last night.
Thank you, John.
Deserves it.
Thank you. I've been involved in the home technology business for 29 years, so I'm a junior to Jerry here, but 20 years of that was on
You're not junior to anybody.
No, I know. Right. 20 years of that was with Elan Home Systems, the control company. I was actually involved when it was owned by Square D. That's how long ago that was. I was the general manager, and then eventually the president, and worked as the chief marketing officer for Nortech after they bought the system. So have done a couple venture capital and private equity deals along the way. 9 years ago, I left the manufacturing side and and joined the integrator side of the business as a business coach. We developed a quantitative metric system for coaching integrators on finance and operations, and I was the founder of that company, Vital Management, and we successfully completed a $65 million private equity deal for a roll-up of 13 of those businesses, which is now known as Bravus. I think you saw Sean Weiner yesterday. So we helped form that business. I'm currently engaged in helping integrators find more technicians, which is a workforce issue that's out there. And I have a company that is finding folks that are not in this industry and testing them for aptitude and training them on basic credentials and then hooking them up with the many employers that I know in this business. So a little bit of everything, a dabbler.
And so part of the design of this session was, here's this guy who's with a supplier level company now, but has deep experience on the volume installation side of things. He's going to focus on the installation side. And here's this guy that has the bulk of his experience in manufacturing, but has really been coaching at the integrator level for the last almost 10 years. He's going to talk about the manufacturer selection side of things. And who are you?
Dan Crowley with Craftmark Homes. I am a third-generation home builder. My granddad did back when they called them track homes outside of D.C. in the post-World War II boom. And my father was a custom home builder down at the beach in Delaware. And never thought that I would get into the business myself, but started as an assistant project manager and project manager out in the field building homes with Craftmark Homes. And then when that wonderful thing called 08, 09 came along, my predecessor went off to the State Department and they said, hey, you're kind of good with computers. How do you like to come run this stuff? And it was a great port in a really nasty storm. And once I kind of got the blinking lights all blinking in line and on cruise control, I started elbowing my way into more of the technology that was going into the homes. And it was a good fit because I had some sales background, had production background, and it's just been, growing evolution, to insert myself more into more of how are we using technology to attract homeowners, to satisfy our homeowners, to improve our product in the end.
Right. And tell us a little bit more about Craftmark.
So Craftmark is a regional builder in the DC market. We do about 125 homes a year right now, large, semi-custom single families and luxury townhomes. And it's a very challenging market to do business in, but it's very rewarding at the same time.
Great. So those are the players. We're just going to refresh a little bit on strategic intent. Paul's going to walk us through some ideas for developing a segmented merchandising mix. We're going to talk about selecting the manufacturers once that merchandise mix is in place. And Dan is playing the color commentator role. He's going to jump in vigorously to call BS on things and challenge us and give us reality checks on this. And then we're going to have a conversation with Mr. Calder here. We're going to try to keep him in check. He's in too truthful of a mood, maybe. We'll see. We will see how he performs, but he'll walk through the integrator, subcontractor stuff. And then maybe there'll be some time for Q&A. So that's the flow. So to get all this stuff right downstream, you need to establish your strategic intent and do upfront merchandise planning, okay? I think I've said it 7 times, and maybe...
And that was a big part of what I was talking about yesterday.
Yeah.
If you don't have that vision, if you don't know kind of where you want to take technology, what its role is going to place in your strategic vision for your homes, the rest of this it's not impossible, but it's damn hard and you're making it 100 times harder on yourself and these guys if you don't know what you want to do with it.
Yeah. And yesterday we played Dan's artful video montage, which was a pretty creative way of looking at 3 different levels. This is a set of questions from our merchandise and marketing guide that we're going to revise and have a fully extended process guide in the next couple of months. But here are some more bland questions that you might ask yourselves in the context of a meeting, or if you're the technology leader, just to think through your strategic intent. What are some of the customer-centric things you're trying to achieve? Are there competitive factors that you want to attack? What are the business factors, right? Are you trying to make a lot of money on this stuff? Are you trying to accelerate increase the number of homes you sell by doing this? Are you trying to sell more quickly? I know it's not a factor in this market, but let's see where we are in 6 months, et cetera. So that's for you all to think about as you're setting strategic intent. And with that, I'm going to turn the clicker ritualistically over to Mr. Starkey.
Thank you.
And he's going to walk us through some thoughts on how to develop that merchandise mix.
I think the whole concept of merchandising is interesting because you guys do it every day. There's hardly a category in the home that you don't make an assortment selection, because merchandise is just another word for assortment. Yeah. And you guys do this very naturally and very reactively sometimes in many categories. It's only when we get over to technology that it says, well, that's a different animal. And I hope you would think it differently, because I don't think it's a different animal. It's we tend to, in technology, because we're the worst at this, is we get everything at the ingredient level, right? We're the spice rack when it comes to this. We forget that we're delivering a meal, so we get involved in all the ingredients. And I've bought 9 new homes over my life, and I never bought the ingredients. I always bought an assortment of things. And I think this is a particularly interesting view, because this is, if you look at the time we spend in our homes, this is a composite. This is probably pre-pandemic, because we spent a lot of time in our homes working. At least I do these days. But look at that big slice of pie there, which is sleep. I mean, we spend most of our time in our home sleeping, and most of us before the pandemic would leave the house to work. But there's a lot of things that go on in the home that you guys fit nice assortment of products to. Those may be appliances for cooking, eating. John and I joke about why aren't builders really into TVs? It's all, TVs, we don't want to touch those. I tell you, I just did a big remodel. One of the biggest wows in my house is the 85-inch TV. When my neighbors come over and the surround wood surround around it, it's where we spend a lot of our time, 11% or more, according to this study. But I think it's important to understand the use case of the home, because we all sell from our belly buttons out, right? We sell what we have, and we think about it as what we're delivering. But at the end of the day, all of us live in a home, and it's important how we use it, how we experience it long after the sale. And this is just kind of an interesting model to think.
Let me just interject. Who has a sleep-friendly pitch about their homes that they build? Not a soul. This is the number one thing people do is sleep.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people with sleep issues.
And the lighting folks out there will tell you, that the idea of the circadian rhythm is common, and the ability to replicate the sun and the way in which that affects us, and affects our sleep dramatically.
You think about things that bother you during sleep. It's light, it's sound. I live in San Diego. We seem to have more crows than anywhere.
Crows?
Yeah, in the morning. That's usually the wake-up sign. So, but it could be path lighting. Nobody gets up in the middle of the night, right? Has to go anywhere. It could be path lighting, those kind of things. Those all have ties to technology, so different things to think about.
Let me interject one thing, as you told me to do. How many of the folks out there got in the shower here next door at the Marriott? They've got a Delta O2 Kinetics shower head. It's not electronic, but it's got a little tiny plastic piece in that shower head in each one of those little jets that comes out there that causes oscillation in the water, and it beats on you harder than any other shower head that I've ever had, and it was awesome just getting underneath that water and letting it pound.
I did not have that shower.
You didn't have that one.
I had like a little rainwater thing that was shooting horizontally with inadequate force.
Well, maybe it was the 10th floor. I don't know. Maybe everyone didn't get it.
While we're on showers, I want to convey this quick aside. Sorry, a non sequitur. Does anyone know why we sing in the shower? This is really weird. Our subconscious tells us the reason you sing in the shower is because of the acoustics. Everything gets blurred, and you actually sound like you can sing on tune. But it's our subconscious tells us that I'm in an environment where I would sound good singing, and so we start singing, or you start whistling in one of these stairwells. It's so bizarre.
All right, I'm out. This has totally gone downhill.
My only point in bringing that up, John, is that not all technology has to be blinking. It doesn't have to, have electronics to it. There's a lot of other technology that we can put into our homes that can have a dramatic effect to your how you live and the feel you get out of a home.
I have something that I'd like to add to this. It's not going to be
On the showering front?
No shower relation. Good. As we have conversations with many of you in this room, one of the questions that we ask is do you have the technology in your own home? Do you live with it? And the majority of the individuals in this room don't. And it's hard to communicate to your homeowners or potential buyers what it's like to live in a home that is sophisticated if you don't live in one yourself. You need to experience that. You need to understand what you value and what you hate, and understand what the difference is between those two and how it correlates to your potential homeowners.
I think that's true, and like one of the things I've been preaching on sales the last couple of years is the buyer believes what you believe, right? And you believe in these products that you're putting in the house because you live with them, Jerry, and you experience the benefit. Now, conveying that to either other employees or to the buying public is a hell of a lot easier if it's in your gut.
Yeah.
And didn't, Jerry, Paul, I know in one of our conversations, you said that a lot of the manufacturers and the integrators, they have programs to try to get some of this technology into the hands, into the homes of the executives of the decision makers.
Claire's a great example of that. Yeah, Claire, as I've gotten to know their program, Jason offers at an executive level, to put a free Claire system in, an executive system. And it's no strings attached. It's, if you love it, but you're not interested in putting the product in your home or in your production homes, it's fine, it's yours to keep. But it's an interesting way to help them experience what's going on. And so it happens on everything. My home, I'm happy to say, is very automated. And it's funny because my wife and daughter will go and visit my father, and within 2 days he's calling me going, "What is wrong with your girls? They don't turn the lights off. They're adjusting the temperature, whatever the case is." And I'm like, the house does it for them. They don't have to walk up and hit light switches, and everything's on timers and motion, and that's just what they're used to. So
I want to bring us back to assortment. I know we have a time frame here. So here's a model. You can Google this and learn more about it. It's called the Kano model, and I think it does a good job of kind of separating what we heard yesterday, if you were here for the Blue Heron presentation, which was an amazing wow thing, right? And there was a term that was used called wanters of wow, I think it was. And I think we all are at some level. I think everybody that goes through this purchasing cycle wants wow and will live with wow. And some of the things that they hold on long after the buying experience is those wow factors. And this is a model that helps put in perspective 3 levels of functionality on one level and satisfaction on another, but it also brings in the cost of these things. So the 3 levels are just basic check the box. It's probably the office example and Dan's illustration yesterday. The mid-level is kind of performance, or performance features, or aspects of the products or the assortment you're offering. And then the highest level is really the excitement, what really gets people excited. And that's where people will pay a disproportionate amount of money if they're really excited about a feature that you may be offering. So this is a model that gets into that. And I just took, I can't even read the small print here, but I put in categories what might be technology assortment offerings that would fit in these categories. And this changes. I can tell you 5 years ago, this was a different mix of things. There's some very basic things that everybody would expect to be in a house. I don't think anybody would live in a house that didn't have Wi-Fi today. You probably couldn't get your television service in some locations without it. So those are kind of the base level things. And then you move up from there. And then I think there's a number of areas that are certainly in this wow category. I think motorized shades is entered that part. The LED lighting is now in that part of it. There's a number of things, and you'll have time to look at the presentation here and understand it. But it's balancing the cost of offering these things and delivering these things. I did a $300,000 remodel here recently, and I was just checking in my mind because my neighbors go through and comment on things. And I'd say there's 12 or 13 wow points in that design, and they were intentional, and they were done to the satisfaction of the occupants, which was me and my wife. So I think this is a very important part of assortment. And then you get into, well, how do I select a manufacturer? We have a lot of them here presenting wares. I think this is a personal thing. It's what you're trying to do is line up a manufacturer that can deliver not their promise, but your promise. This is your promise to your clients. When you offer kitchen appliances and you make that selection, that's your promise to that potential homeowner of what the experience is going to be using that particular line. Some would say, I want them all to be the same. Some people say, I want best of breed in each one. Whatever your criteria is for doing that, you're trying to match your assortment or your selection of that manufacturer with your brand. Your home is a brand. It fits a particular client or customer. So you do this all the time. So technology shouldn't be any different. You should pick manufacturers that fit your brand. And there are certain manufacturers that have brand awareness that can enhance your brand, that are household names. But frankly, I come from the manufacturing side. Most of the brands in this space aren't household names. There's Sony, there's a few that you could give credibility to, but most of us aren't well known. Now there are a lot of mass brands that are becoming very well known. I think everybody knows Ring, everybody knows some of those products, but it has to fit within your brand profile. And we see sometimes a real disparity between what the home brand is and what the technology brand that they've selected to put in it. I mean, it's a real gap, in my opinion. The other thing is the technical fit. Not all manufacturers are playing in the same tier. You know, there's really good, better, best options within manufacturers. So you want to find something that fits an ecosystem, that if you have a home that's particularly on the luxury side, that people are going to scale. They're going to scale their pocketbook, right? You want a brand that scales with you. In that case, you don't want a dead ender. You don't want the client dissidents once they get in the home and said, they put a nickel device in my dollar home. So I think that's an important sign.
And you want stuff that works together, right?
Absolutely.
And you want, if you do have a vision that the user's going to expand their use of this technology, you don't want them to be running into dead ends. So you want to think about this on the front end. You don't want to be into your purchasing process and building your homes and suddenly find out that the remote control lock doesn't work with the alarm system that you selected. So, I mean, there is a lot of co-compatibility that's built in. Don't ask for one standard. And if anyone tells you that there's going to be one standard, please be skeptical, because I've been hearing about it for 30 years, from CBus to Elon, Echelon or whatever, but it ain't going to happen. But there's a lot of different compatibilities, but there are still dead ends and incompatibilities, or you have to hack to create the compatibility, and then the cost structure is there and the user functionality is diminished. So that's got to be part of your criteria, is understanding.
And it's back to that intentional strategy of what do you...
What is the story you're trying to tell? We tell a story about our homes and what we expect our homeowners to live, the lifestyle that they're going to live, the experience that they're going to have in it, and that story this is a part of it. It's not, it may not be the dialogue, but it may be the costuming, it may be the background track, the soundtrack to this story.
I always think it this way: you're creating the promise for your client when you make these selections of manufacturers, when you decide what assortment that you're going to provide. And another piece of this is, can they deliver your promise? Because it's soon, once you accept the promise of providing this as part of your assortment, then somebody else is going to deliver that promise. Now, somebody else delivers their plumbing promise. Somebody else delivers your electrical or lighting promise, and somebody else, delivers your heating and air conditioning promise. Right? It's the same with this aspect of it. So, Jerry's going to talk more about the side of this, but you have to select manufacturers that have the coverage or the ability to serve your client, because long after they forgot the name of the printer, the drywaller, or the carpenter, or the framer, or whatever, they're going to have this technology guy that they're going to live with a long time. I always say it's a lifetime commitment. And if you're a good integrator, you want it to be. You want it to be an ongoing relationship. So very important, this whole idea of being able to deliver the promise. And then every manufacturer out there has a program. They can provide you discounts, they can provide you programs, but that's not really what's important. What's really important is, how can they make you successful in presenting the promise and delivering the promise? What level of training, support, digital assets, as we've learned here at the conference, how can they make that message more effective? How can they support your sales staff, your support staff? The best thing is, deliver on time, deliver under budget, and be reliable and be responsive. That's what that's what the integrators have to be, and that's what you need from the manufacturer as well. So I'm going to turn this over to the integrator.
Can you just hang on to that slide for 1 second, Paul? I just want to interject on the ability to cover and serve. I would just ask the additional question, because I think the question is typically, who can you get to do this work for me from a subcontractor integrator standpoint? The other question is, can you train? Because we all know you want fewer throats to choke on the job. Can you train my existing sub to do all of this or part of this? Should be part of the conversation, right? As well as, can you match make me with a sub or an integrator? So let's make that part of the conversation too. Okay, so Jer, let's walk through the integrator installer stuff.
I don't want to sound as I go through this part of it as if I'm preaching to everybody. The intent for the next few slides is not to scare or intimidate. It's not to stand up on the mountain and tell you what you should or should not do. These are things that over my career and having conversations with people in the industry are effective. And there's a lot of work that has to be done on the front end. But the value of this, once you get these processes in place and you work through this, are going to pay dividends. It's going to help streamline the process. It's going to add a level of accountability. And in the long run, you will be a much happier builder by taking some of these ideas and applying them. So the first part, the defining the roles, this is something that everybody seems to take for granted, and nobody documents it, nobody holds each other accountable for it. You know, the manufacturer obviously plays a big role. What is that role as it pertains to your vision for your homeowners? The integrator plays a role. Your construction staff, your sales staff, everybody has a role to play in order to make sure that this is successful. By creating a scope of work and laying out what should happen, this is a process that should be done by you. You are our customer. You need to tell us what your vision is, what your expectations are, and it is important to document it. Now, some of this stuff, as we go through it, you're going to go, oh, I have that clause in my contract. I have this, I have that. Let's be honest. Once that contract's signed, the majority of the time it gets filed, and the only time it comes back out is if there's any kind of legal recourse that needs to happen. You're going to see that one of the things that I talk about is creating a playbook for the individual communities. And that may have the same information from community to community, but it's there on site. It has contact information. It has who's responsible for what. Once again, it's hard to do in the beginning, but once you build the templates and you do this, it becomes second.
I think it's a great point that contracts are not working documents.
Yep.
Contracts are dispute settling documents.
Exactly.
So things have gone wrong by the time that contract gets pulled out.
The last point I kind of brushed over. So by service level agreement, and I think we get into this a little bit more detail, there's a lot of things when you talk about what is the service level agreement. It could be from, hey, if there's a stock outage, what's the replacement process for doing that? If there's a defective, if I have a customer that has a challenge, what's your response time to go out there?
Next slide.
There we go.
Yeah.
And so if you look at that service level, I know I'm off to the one side, but there's things that you have expectations of your trades as well. They have to go to, what's the OSHA safety protocol? Who's the safety person for that organization? What's their responsibility for attending construction meetings? How do they conduct themselves on the job site? Are you allowing them to bring their dog with them? Can they smoke while they're inside the building and or the property and doing stuff? What's cleanup? Do they throw their trash away there, or are they expected to haul it out? These are all things that you need to take the time and document. On the scope of work side of it.
Hey, Jerry, can I stop you there? Because this says service level agreement. So there's a service level agreement as in a contract. Is there a service level document that's more high level? We can consult this on an ongoing basis to execute as an integrator to the demands of the builder, or should there be something?
I thought somebody was interjecting from outside. when I was doing this, I made the individual installers read and sign off on a community scope of work. That if they had to relieve themselves, they used the porta potty. If they were going to park in a certain spot, because there's parking restrictions, especially when you're doing towers downtown.
Yeah.
And I made sure that I held them accountable to it.
Yeah.
Because that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And
But I'm going back to working document versus dispute settling document, right? It's
The working
hey,
document,
Here's what
you-
I expect of you. How do we get a working level document on this stuff? Because something that's simple enough, that's high level enough, yet it is something that you can come back to on a day-to-day basis and say, are we conforming with the service level requirements of this work? I don't know whether that exists now or whether that's something that should exist.
One thing I'd like to, Jerry, you mentioned that, all the way down to the installer level that you went through that with your guys. It almost could be something that, the builder's project manager, that you give that to them, and the first day, the first house they come out, project manager just spends 5 minutes with every trade and just like, here you go. This is what is expected of you, on this job site. Read through it, throw your signature at the bottom, and we're going to agree to this together, that this is what it's going to look like the rest of the time.
Sign it, but if it gets tucked away in a
No,
drawer,
yeah.
so what?
put it in
No,
that,
but
in that
again-
playbook, in that community playbook.
Yeah, but it's that constant reiteration of this is the level of quality that we are expecting, and let's just agree to it up front.
How you conduct yourself.
We're gonna be partners. We're gonna collaborate in this and make this profitable, smooth, so that everybody gets home safely every night, and that our homeowners are eventually gonna come in and live in, their dream.
And let's be honest, you're going to have potential home buyers or people that have just purchased that are going to go into that community to check on the status of their home. And you want them to walk in to a radio blaring, thug rap, them smoking a cigarette, somebody cooking burritos on an open fire in the middle of the floor plan. You don't. And look, we're laughing at this, but these are all things that I've seen before. And so while they're on your property, they need to represent your brand. And it's not unreasonable to ask them to conform to that. On the scope of work side of it, goes to yesterday's conversation with laying out, taking the time up front to do the engineering, knowing where everything goes. Once again, I'm not trying to preach, but the value of this is consistency. All right, and repeatability and scalability and all the abilities that go along with it. By doing this and laying that out, the integrator becomes more efficient, but your construction staff on site can walk a house in the evening before they go home and very quickly glance and know if something's out of place, if it's done consistently. Now, do walls get moved? Are there challenges with ductwork? Are there things that can change that primary location? Yes. But make that the exception, not the rule. Look, I got people taking notes, John.
You scored, man.
There you go, buddy. So you've taken the time, you've created this vision, you know what's going on, you've selected a manufacturer. Not all of the integrators that you are probably currently working with or that you might potentially be working with, they may or may not have that brand. So one of these business conversations among many that you need to have with them is, are you willing to pick up this line because there's a cost associated with it, there's training associated with it. What are you smirking for?
I'm just thinking is like, what's the integrator going to say? It's like, no, I do this one, it's better, you should do this. Now, what do you do out there?
Yeah.
You just cave to that? Or do you say, you need to become proficient on this, or I'm going to find somebody else who is, because this is where the rubber meets the road, right? It's like, are you going to abdicate? Are you going to cave to the integrator because you don't want to do additional work to find somebody who can do that work, or you don't want to push back and make them get Paul, you guys should both speak to this. I think most integrators who want a relationship with a builder, unless they're being asked to really stretch on a proficiency, I guess it depends on the volume of the work, but most of them are going to figure out a way to become proficient and do that work. What do you think?
I think there's a bias on the integrator side and on the manufacturer side where, they all want to own their assortment.
Yeah.
And I think this is the little short blanket on the bed, right? Is when you guys start owning that blanket, the integrator will always be trying to figure out how to get his assortment in on the deal. And I think that's been the history of this industry. Some manufacturers go to the point, we're not going to put everybody on. We're not going to give you our product because I got a guy across the street that has been doing my product for 10 years, so use my guy. So there is some conflict there, and I think we should understand that. But I think it's important for the builders stand up and say, hey, this is what I'm doing the right thing for my assortment, not, well, I'm just going to let that go the way it's going to go. Ultimately, it's still important. The guy you select has to deliver the promise. That's the bottom line.
And that's where some of these key questions, you might look at this and go, this is kind of rudimentary stuff. But we assume, and by we I mean as a builder, you assume that a lot of this has already been thought through and worked through with the integrator, and that's not always the case. Having an ecosystem or complementary products that are going to fit into that vision, to that piece of hardware or that manufacturer you'd selected. Can the installer or the integrator scale with your business? Do they have the operational disciplines and the financing and everything that comes along with that to grow as you grow? Because if they don't, they're gonna have an impact on your construction schedule. What are they doing from a skilled labor standpoint? You hear it over and over again. What does that labor really look like? And if you get a guy where it's a 1 or 2 man band, that's expensive labor. John's brought up, can the electrical contractor do some of the low voltage wiring? Who can do the trim? These are all things trying to keep costs in control while maintaining quality.
Next slide is going to help you.
Oh, you did switch it up.
I heard you.
All right, just making sure. So to the point that I was just making, by the way, John had this towards the end and we argued it out this morning. Thanks, John.
Yes.
Appreciate you. So this is, Paul brought up, we're not trying to make sausage, and we're bringing you into the sausage level stuff. But these are things that as you're evaluating these subs, these are some good questions to ask. What does your current labor force look like? What's your mix of stuff? How are they compensated? Are they compensated by how many jobs they get done in a day? Or are they compensated based on the quality of work that they do? Do you have one van and you're trying to cover a 100-mile radius? Or do you have a fleet of vans? Are they strategically located in different spots? So there's things that you need to look at. And the reason why I brought this up and that John pulled me up here to talk to everybody is this is a system that I grew up with and had implemented throughout my career. And by providing a career path for these installers, your employee retention went through the roof. And if we have skilled laborers that take pride in what they're doing and they have a vested interest in the success, and the turnover is minimized by that, that just means they're going to deliver a higher quality, on-time product for everybody here. So that's the value of doing something like that.
I think part of it is also, are you looking at this as a subcontractor who you've put out, a request for proposal, bring it back, give me numbers, and I'm going to plug you in? Or is it a trade partner? Is it someone that, are these companies that you are going to look as, we're going to collaborate on this? Because one of the things that the builders, a lot of times we don't want to think about is, how are you going to make money on this? It can't just be, we're going to squeeze every nickel from you that we possibly can. Because when you do that, it works, and particularly if you're doing a high enough volume, it can work. But are you going to be there for us in the future? And what kind of product, are you going to give to us when we come at this from a very domineering, top-down, we're going to force everything we can on you, and we're going to take everything we can from you as well. So let us, understand a little bit better about your business. What
Exactly.
goals are you trying to achieve? And how can we make this, a success for everybody?
Exactly. There's, we've gotten to know each other throughout all this, and Sean, obviously. And it made me happy the other night to see you and your integrator collaborate on stuff. You were in sync. You knew about each other's business, what worked and what didn't. And if you look at everything that I've outlined prior to this, and including this, it's not you trying to play a dominant role in it. It's trying to get everybody to become partners on it, understanding what the give and take points are, what the end goal looks like, how, what's the promise that you've made to your homeowner. Everyone in this room has had to replace a trade. You've squozed them down, they're not making money, maybe they're not disciplined enough, they have high turnover, whatever the case may be. And what is the cost to you as a builder to have to pull that horse, I was going to use, and shoot it, and have to replace the horse mid-race? Yeah. It's expensive, there's confusion, your construction staff wants to hang you, the sales team doesn't know what's going on, you have customers asking, I saw it like this in my neighbor's house, why is it not like that in my house? Do the hard work up front, form a partnership, plan this stuff out, do your engineering, the cost of doing a change order, all these things, they add up. But if you do it right the first time and you make it a repeatable system, I promise you, your life will be much better.
I had 3 words come to mind, Dan, when you were talking. There's domination, right, which is maybe not going to get you the best result. There's collaboration, and then there's abdication. And what we've been arguing against is abdication. Don't abdicate. You may need to dominate in certain aspects of this, and you certainly need to collaborate in certain I'd like to see more of the collaboration up front and early on the design and the determination and the engineering, right? And maybe more of the domination at the job site, right? I think we talked a lot before we got up here about whether the 2 trades, you don't want 16 trades involved in this stuff, right? But the 2 trades that are most likely in question here are electrical and low voltage. And but if you design up front, there can be a good planned interface between those 2 trades and the job site. And I think a lot of times I might be wrong. I'm not in the field doing this stuff, but where the technology integrator can be disruptive and slow things down is in that wiring phase, and they may not get the crews there on time, and the EC is there. And if that wiring pull can be done the right way by the EC, that's going to save money potentially, and it's going to save disruption to the construction process, but you got to have it designed up front, right?
Exactly.
And that EC needs to be trained to do low voltage wiring the right way. And you've done this, like there's the trim and the punch out, and can the EC do the punch out, and you know all that stuff way better than I do, but the upfront design will, I think, create a better integration of those 2 trades on the job site. What do you think, Dan?
But sometimes it's that conversation up front and some transparency and honesty of, talking to your integrator and say, what do you think about pulling wire? What would it do for you all if we had the electrical contractor do it instead of you all? And they may say, you know what, that would be fantastic. They're already in the house. They're pulling wires for other things. It's a nuisance for me. I don't make any money on it. Talk to them and see how it works for them. Integrator may come back and say, you know what, I really need that. That's where I actually can, make a little money on this and at least know that coming into it, I'm going to at least break even.
Yep.
You don't know until you've had that conversation. You've asked the question.
Paul, what are your thoughts in this area?
No, I think that's what I'm seeing, because I work with hundreds of integrators, and what many of them, particularly in the big metro areas, have been doing is they've been subbing out the pre-wire work. And it's not always the electrician. Sometimes they have a dedicated pre-wire. But what it requires, when they decide not to do it themselves, which is kind of this, well, we'll get in there and we'll figure out the pre-wire when we're in there. No, they have to plan it. They have to design it. They have to engineer it. So I think that shift is happening in a lot of locations, and I think it's a healthy thing, because the guys that do pre-wires for a living do it a lot better than the guys that it's just a piece of what they do. And whether it's the electrician or a third party that's doing it, I think it's a good plan.
So you're saying there is specialization happening out
Yes.
there
Yep.
in the trade base
Yes.
that could be tapped for this, and you can.
Yes.
It's more to manage. I get it, but it may get you to a better result and a better price point. We got to get out. So I put these seeing eye charts up. If you could put back up on the screen. So this is from this outline for the process guide that we're going to publish by the end of the summer, God willing. And we talked a lot about this. Like, we're trying to sell a high-level concept, and should we show all the nitty-gritty stuff out there? Is people going to flee in terror from that? And my philosophy is that there are unstated objections. There are things rolling around in people's heads that are saying, well, this is why I shouldn't or I can't, and that it's better to get where's my cat? The cat on the table or the elephant in the room, out in the open. So I just want to, we're going to have a straw man for you to work with on some of this stuff, right?
Can I, because I know we're running out of time.
Yep.
One thing that I would love as a takeaway for everyone here. We just threw a bunch of stuff at you. We tried to be a little lighthearted about it, but it's a serious message, and we're telling you this because we care. You've made the investment and the time to come here to meet with manufacturers and other builders. This organization that this gentleman has put together is a fabulous resource. We're here to help make sure that you're successful. And if you take anything away from this, take away that you're not alone, that you have the ability to call myself or Paul or any of the other trades that you may have met here, or individuals from John's staff, and ask questions. Do you have an example? Or, hey, do you have, in my case with Snap, we have over 16,000 integrators across the country. Hey, Jerry, we're doing something in Albuquerque. Do you have a list of good trades that you might be able to put us in touch with? I will absolutely help you. Whether you do our products or not, we're all in this together, and don't think that you have to do it all by yourself. Did I overstate that?
You did a great job.
Okay.
Thanks for
Commit-
imposing a brand promise on us. But no, that's what we are here to do. And we need feedback on some of this stuff. In this area, we're laying out a lot of conceptual, idealized process stuff. It's going to need to be workshopped. This is a straw man. It's 1.0. We welcome feedback. We want to turn it into a real working document, but I'm just flipping through this stuff because we do need to get out of here, because we actually need to bring up the sponsor of this morning's session. First of all, thank you to the panel, because I might not be able to thank you. Let's hear it for these guys. This one was not easy. We had a lot of back and forth on this. We had some late night old fashions as well, thinking it through. But I want to bring up JD Tofflin with Infinity Energy, who's the sponsor of today's session. JD, take it away.
Thank you, guys. I am definitely cannot trump that. What you guys did was amazing. I think there's so much that we're all hearing. For me, it stands out. I've sat through a bunch of these sessions, worked with you a couple of times, and the organization is fantastic. And thank you guys for taking the time. I know how crazy everything is going on right now. So to be able to take some time, come out and do this, it's a fantastic situation. But my biggest takeaways have been, if we communicate not only together, but in a more general session, right? Like, I hear you guys talking about sharing of trades and sharing of work and making fewer trips and better scenarios for a home build, that communication has to happen at a different level than at the pitch table, right? When we're sitting in your office and offering you a service, it's too late for us to be able to then untangle that because we're already in the entitlement. We've already put the house together. And so these scenarios where we're getting some really good communication and starting to learn some different knowledge, I think the knowledge piece around, I have some smart home experience. We're a solar company. Did appliances for a long time, all in the builder space. And it was always really exciting to bid for a builder that knew what I was doing, because it meant that at least I knew that I was going to be able to communicate something to you on paper with a price that was analogous with what you wanted to offer to your home buyer, right? And so that communication where we start talking about, it's funny because even at the Marriott, I had the same shower head experience, right? And so you're leaving here going, oh, that place kicks ass. And I'm leaving going, I was really underwhelmed by the shower and I travel a lot and that really matters, right? And so, but somebody's not communicating there, right? That's a clear miss at a giant organization that for whatever reason, the 10th floor, maybe they're remodeled, who knows, right? But from that perspective, if you look at it from building a house, the same is true when you're talking about teaching a trade on how to act on your job site to going all the way back to how you're putting the house together before you entitle it and how you're going to go to market and what buyers you attract. Everybody asks the solar company, what do you guys do differently? I think it's a really amazing question because I don't think many trades have an answer for that. Solar is a super competitive space, and there are a lot of trades that are trying to do it or want to do it. And by asking that question early, and especially in these, I've been asked that at the last 3 of these, we've started to figure out that, we have to be a little different, and we do already do things differently, and we should be proud of that. And so, whether it's, we put in a smart home panel, right? It's more for solar monitoring because solar is like this weird thing that nobody understands. But so we do the low volt, right? Like we're already there, we're already doing it. So we've partnered with a ton of smart home companies that we put in the low volt and then we put in a panel. Mostly for you guys to not have the questions about solar because nobody knows what solar is, but in California you have to have it. In a lot of states, some of the jurisdictions, some of the cities are starting to require it as well. So, we're seeing that sort of cascade and spread. And so I'll just wrap it up real quick by saying that, for me, what I think you guys brought and the document that you're putting together is so amazing because that's that knowledge piece that so many people are striving to get, but you just don't know how to go get it. You don't have the time to go figure out, which shower head is right. You just don't have the time because you have 52 trades building a house. You're probably getting 3 or 4 bids from each one of them. You've got, how many manufacturers do you guys have just at Snap? 1 million?
A lot.
I mean, it's, I'm probably joking. It's probably not 1 million, but it's probably 250,000.
999,000.
Right?
2 slides there.
Yeah, I mean, it's with that font though, right? So, but it's that whole piece of really having solid communication at the front side and then getting some great resources like Jerry, who's been in the industry forever, like AE, who's been doing this for a long time to get you that knowledge. So when you're putting all the pieces together, you're getting a truly cohesive build. And so thank you guys for coming. I mean, it's amazing you're here. I'll turn it back over to you, but
Thank you,
thanks for the
Davey.
breakfast. So
Thank you
thanks for
so
the time.
much.